Okay, welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp. I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right. So today we're going to talk about two movies, both in the Oscar buzz, and we were finally able to go see them in the theater. We'll talk first about Wild and then about Selma. But before that, last week we did a show on directors, and I missed talking about Akira Kurosawa.
Can't believe it.
Who I love.
I can't believe when I saw when you put the description and you put his name, I go, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like not even a mention.
Nope.
Not even a thought.
And for me, it was because the way my list was all structured is I had like the big guns at the top and then, everybody else. And by the time we had filtered through our big ones and I started getting hurried and we started talking about other specific, foreign directors. We talked about foreign directors.
Right.
And I was looking through my, not big gun list, and he
should
wasn't
have been
in there because he was in the big gun list.
Yeah. He should have been. I was like, I'm a little bit ashamed. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I was disappointed in myself that I didn't even consider it. Mm-hmm. That's not good.
And I haven't even seen. I mean, I'll be the first to say I own Seven Samurai on DVD. Haven't watched it.
Why?
It's because I have to strap myself in. I know it's a long movie and I don't want to break it up. So that's one thing.
Okay, that's fair.
So that being said, I've seen Rashomon. I've seen Throne of Blood. I've seen Ron. I saw Ron in the theater, which is kind of cool. I mean, I think it was a DVD or something, but it was a neat little hey, let's get everybody together and watch this in the theater type thing where they did in my.
It's a different experience when you see it on the big screen.
Yeah,
it just is.
It was fun. So I mean, I've seen.
I've seen all of them too.
Okay, see, yeah,
Gosh,
we just
shameful.
All right.
We also missed Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
We also missed Ilya Kazan.
Yes.
Which
and I haven't seen. Oh, wait, hold on.
On the Waterfront.
I saw On the Waterfront.
Yeah,
but that's the only one I've seen.
And Gentleman's Agreement was on last night on TCM, which won the Oscar in 1947, I think, for Best Picture. He won, and his name came up, and I was like,
oh no.
We missed some big ones.
Oh, jeez.
What can you do, though? It was an hour and 45-minute show, and we just rattled on and on and on about,
we tried.
Well, I mean, we even mentioned that we're leaving people off and we're not talking about certain people, but there are many people who are out there who love films. Those three people that we didn't mention would immediately come up in conversation. You didn't mention that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we understand.
Sorry.
And then there were a couple trailers that just came out in the last couple of days that we both saw recently. One is the new Judd Apatow movie that is the first one that he has not written, that he has directed.
Oh, interesting.
And it's called Trainwreck. It's written by Amy Schumer, who's a stand-up comedian. She's had her own show on Comedy Central for a while. And it also stars Bill Hader and a bunch of other people, LeBron James, John Cena. I mean, non-actors, but they seem like they did, in the trailer at least, they seem like they're doing okay.
Yeah, it looks fun.
I think it's. I mean, those three people right there is probably enough for me to go see the movie. But the trailer kind of, it made me. Made me want to see it even more, because I'd heard a bunch about it, and it was kind of weirdly under wraps. Like nobody knew what the movie was about until this trailer came out. Because I mean, just in reading the
That's
movie
good,
blogs
though.
and stuff, yeah,
Too much information can ruin something.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's a lot of fun, and I think it'll be a little bit more of a not a return to form. I mean, he kind of started getting, with Funny People, he started getting really deep into some issues.
Who's that? Who's in that?
Judd Apatow. Oh, that had Seth Rogen and Adam Sandler.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. I mean, it was...
I wanted to.
It was I think it was probably a serious thing. I mean, Adam Sandler played a comedian who just, went out and banged a bunch of chicks and had no, he had no... that there were no repercussions for him. He was just a really popular guy who had a bunch of cheesy movies that came out, which, I mean, yeah, it's kind of him, making fun of himself in some ways, but, and they've been friends for Judd Apatow and Adam Sandler were roommates in the, late 80s, early 90s. So
it strangely makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then he did that. He did the This Is 40, which is kind of like the pseudo sequel.
I
But
liked it.
It's all, it's all growing up type movies, and then this is kind of like back down to, what is, and what is happening today. To, I guess, people in the hustle and bustle of New York City and all that stuff. That's not really my life, but I can see.
Well, she looks like the typical male character in a movie, meaning the things she does and says in the trailer would come across as a stereotypical male, which is interesting. It's a twist on it. Apatow is always strangely rude, a little disrespectful, but always has this great humor and heart to everything he does. There's truth at the bottom of everything that rises above. So I'm in. I'll see it.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention, since we're talking about like more recent things, I just saw Men, Women, and Children, which you need to see because I think we should do a whole episode on that.
Okay.
Because it's good and it's bad and it's amazing and it's
bad as in critically bad, meaning
no, I mean I don't know what the critics really think
tore
about
it
it.
up.
Okay. Well, I don't think that I think it's bad in, I don't know. I think you need to see it, but I think that he's becoming I think that Jason Reitman is becoming a little too precious. The edge that he had on Thank You for Smoking is completely gone now.
Too precious, huh?
And he's using bigger hammers now. You know what I mean? Like there may have been some nuance to some of the things, the satire that was going on in Thank You for Smoking, and even in Juno to some extent, but there's no satire in this movie whatsoever. It is all just bludgeoning you with caricatures and things like that. But at the same time, I totally understand where he's coming from with his views on
he has an interesting and unique voice, and it's interesting that we're talking about him right after talking about Apatow. How do you say his name? Apatow. Well, that's an interesting one. That makes sense to me. That leap makes sense to me. They're sort of they have their own voice, and they're sort of sharp-witted and satirical. That's a good word for it. But I don't know. I'll see it.
Oh,
Men,
no,
Women,
you need
and
to
Children.
See it. You need to see it because the
I believe in
performances in
Reitman.
it are great. He gets some great performances out of some amazing actors. I mean,
he usually
just
does, though.
J.K. Simmons, once again, has like 5 lines, 3 scenes.
Yeah, he's in every one of his films, isn't he?
He is. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
And then the last movie we'll talk about that the trailer just came out today was Aloha. It's Cameron Crowe's new movie. Stars Bradley Cooper and Emma Stone. Also has Rachel McAdams, John Krasinski,
Danny McBride,
Alec Baldwin, Bill Murray.
I'm in.
Yeah, me too.
How could you go wrong?
Yeah, and so that, I mean, I think that he knows how to craft trailers, and he knows which music to pick, and I think that it's a very effective trailer. So I just hope that it's. I don't know. I liked Elizabethtown, but I mean, it didn't knock my socks off like, Jerry Maguire did, or Almost Famous. I loved Almost Famous.
Yeah.
So what about you? What do you think?
Well, I think you saying Elizabethtown is interesting because right after I watched the trailer, I said it looks like Elizabethtown meets Jerry Maguire, and I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
You have an idea as a director or a book writer or playwright, and you go with it. You write what you know. So if that's what Cameron Crowe wants to do, he wants to do the guy who's down and out, who supposedly makes a big mistake in his life. Jerry Maguire, he does that. Elizabethtown, he does that.
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom designs that shoe, which nobody would ever design or believe would be a possible shoe, by the way. It's a bit exaggerated. That's the flaw. That's the beginning flaw of that movie. But overall, it's a charming film. It works on some kind of level, but he gets these strong performances out of these stereotypical female actresses that could go very caricaturous, and Emma Stone looks like she's going to fit right in there. Who's the woman in Elizabethtown? I can't think of her name right
Kirsten
now.
Dunst.
Thank you. Very strong. Same with Jerry Maguire. Same with
Renee Zellweger.
yes, thank you. I can't think of him. Very strong, but still playing your ingenue and still a romantic lead. And then it's always interesting to me when the character are flipped on themselves. So the guy is the one fumbling through something and needs to be saved by the girl, or he needs to save himself before she'll even have anything to do with him. I like that. It's a nice twist on it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that it's, a strong female character, because I mean, in this you have that to the extreme. She's a fighter pilot.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like, what is she going to be, like an oil rig worker? I mean, is that going to be the next ingenue?
Sure, let's do it.
Cameron Crowe's movies.
Yeah, why not?
So yeah, it looks good though.
Both of those two films are something to be excited about. It's like waiting for Christmas. There's something around the corner that when these films are released, we're like, okay, at least we have some kind of excitement going to the movies. Not that it ever gets boring for me on any level, but it's always nice to go, oh, new Cameron Crowe. Haven't seen him in a while. Haven't heard his voice in a while. Let's go.
And this movie's gone on for, I think they shot in like 2013 or something. I mean, so for whatever reason, it's gone on for a while. But you're right. It's good to be able to look forward to movies that aren't, Marvel movies. You know what I mean? Like they've got their
I don't
movies,
have a problem with.
No, they've got their movies mapped out to like 2019. So that's fine. And we know, I know that I'm going to have a Guardians of the Galaxy summer of 2017, which I'm excited about. But at the same time, there's these movies in between that are going to pop up that are going to be awesome also, that we don't even know about yet. Birdman, it was about this time last year when Birdman's trailer came out.
Whiplash.
And Whiplash too. I mean, right. Yeah, you're right. Because that's the first time I heard about it was Sundance last year.
And it just gets this little like spark or heat inside your chest that starts to get you excited. It's literally, I know it's kind of a cheeseball comparison, but it's sort of like Christmas Eve when you're a kid. Yeah. You're like waiting. You're like, okay, is Santa going to come? Is he not going to come? Is it going to be good? Am I going to get what I want? It's the same thing with going to see these movies. So when I hear names like Reitman, Cameron Crowe, when I hear things like that, I go, oh, okay, well, wait. Okay, and I go back on the list of all the things that they've done, and I go, it adds up to a pretty good experience no matter how good or bad the film turns out to be. I was excited about Vanilla Sky. Yeah. I thought it was one of the weakers of his film, but in the end, I've seen it a couple times now, so that says something. I can rewatch it.
That's true. And it's funny because, like, in a similar way that you say that we get this excitement about movies coming up, I have kind of the opposite effect. When I left Inherent Vice, I was kind of like, oh, it's going to be a while until I see another Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
That's like after opening all the presents and you have to eat breakfast and you're like, okay, is it over?
You're like, there's not one more present?
Yeah, but then you remember your stockings and you're like, oh, after breakfast, you're like, oh. Yeah, and then it's the next day after Christmas and you wake up, you still don't have to go back to school yet, but there's nothing, especially when you're a kid, there's nothing to look forward to because New Year's Eve is not a big deal to kids, when you're younger. So, yeah, you get up, you get down, you get disappointed or let down and it's over with. And I get that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's great. All right, well, let's talk about our first movie today. It's Wild. It is directed by Jean-Marc Vallée, who directed Dallas Buyers Club last year.
My favorite movie last year.
Yep. And written by Nick Hornby. The screenplay was written by Nick Hornby, who you might know from About a Boy, High Fidelity. He's written a bunch of books, but he's also written screenplays too.
What else has he written?
He wrote
screenplay-wise?
The two that I've seen and really enjoy are About a Boy and High Fidelity. He also wrote An Education, with Peter Sarsgaard movie.
Yeah, got Carey Mulligan. Yeah, interesting film. I
didn't see that
all
one.
Three of them are interesting movies.
And then he wrote the book Fever Pitch, which was about it was about it was soccer or football or rugby, I think. I think it was football in England, and then it got kind of moved around to fit into baseball.
Wait a second. Can you do accents too? You can pronounce everybody's name, and now you can do. I can't. I'm the actor, and I can't pronounce anybody's name, and I can't do accents. What's up here?
I don't know.
So say his name again. The director's name again.
Nick Hornby.
No. That's the screen.
Oh, the director.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is it
Jean-Marc Vallée?
It is Vallée. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's his name. I mean, I think that's
it's got that accent. It's got the EE on the accent.
But there's an accent on the first E.
So I thought it was Vallée too, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of guessing there. But
I'm going with it, dude. It sounded right. You said it with confidence. So
that's right. So yeah, those are the big ones that he's written. He really hasn't written that many.
Those are pretty good. That's a pretty good list.
High Fidelity is.
I love it.
Is great.
That scene with Bruce Springsteen is brilliant. Oh, there's also sort of a semi scene in Wild with Springsteen. Minor. Remember, she says, "Come on, Springsteen, help me through this."
That's right. And then there's a little bit of a
That's because Bruce is the.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah.
Let me back up. Nick Hornby did not write the screenplay for High Fidelity. He just wrote the book, and then John Cusack and his buddies wrote the screenplay.
It had to start from somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to do a quick.
I like that movie
description. I think this is a pretty good description. A chronicle of one woman's 1,100-mile solo hike undertaken as a way to recover from a recent catastrophe. So that's a general, that's the easiest way to explain it. She walks the Pacific Crest Trail from the border at the Mexican-American border in California all the way up to the Canadian-American border.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's inspirational, though.
It is.
I would do it if I could.
Well, my wife and I watched it together, and a couple of years ago for our 10-year anniversary, we went to the Smoky Mountains and we hiked what was supposed to be 5 days, and it turned out being 2.5 days.
Why you gave up?
Because of multiple reasons. It was raining for a day and a half of that, and we just didn't have not clean socks. We didn't have dry socks, and we couldn't keep. We each had 3 pairs of socks, but we just couldn't keep our socks dry.
Yeah, that's devastating. That can ruin.
And we were going.
Can hurt you for a long time.
Yeah, and we were also going longer than we should have. We went anywhere from 11 to 13 miles a day, whereas after seeing this movie, you see that she goes anywhere from 6 to 9 miles a day.
Right.
So,
but isn't the average 11 to 12? Weren't the guys talking about in the movie?
They may have been going,
but they had been hiking
that's
for
the thing.
a while.
They had been training for this.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people.
And she's
train,
like, nothing. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, a lot of people trained for these hikes, and like you see in the movie, they have people send them by. You can't carry all the stuff.
Right.
For 4 months worth of hiking.
Well, coming from the Boy Scout background, when I saw her packing her pack, I was like, oh no, you need to get rid of that. You need to get rid of that. I was like, there's going to be a whole scene where she's going to get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
And there was. Hey, you know what I thought was interesting? Isn't it interesting that this woman's life went astray and her name is Strayed? I know that's...
She picked it.
What do you mean she picked it? Oh, that's
in the movie,
right. She picked it.
They explain that she picked that name because she didn't want to keep her husband's name.
That's right.
And I don't know why she didn't want to go back to her maiden name.
That's right. I forgot about that for a split second. But I thought isn't that kind of ironic that she was straying from her life and then that's interesting.
And then she did, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, this movie hit me hard because it the craft that was employed in this movie as far as giving it was teasing you from the very beginning certain things. One of the first scenes is a shot of a campfire and a piece of paper with a portion of a book with a map on it that says wilderness, and it's burning up, and you have no context to that,
right?
And then you don't even I didn't even realize as a moviegoer and as an audience member that was going to come back. I just kind of thought it was a stylistic choice, a stylistic thing, and I was fine with that, and I moved on. But then after a while, I start realizing that the way that the director has chosen to tell this story is through a series of flashbacks, but snippets of flashbacks, not full scenes of flashbacks.
Flashes of flashbacks.
Yeah,
they were flashes. It was almost subliminal.
Yeah, they're images. It's kind of like it is kind of like what's going on in her head or throughout her head, or something happens. She touches something, she sees something, and then she gets a flash of something that she is a flash of a memory that she has identified that particular item that she's actually holding or working with or experiencing in the present. She flashes back to a specific instance in her life, whether it be, a year ago or, 25 years ago when she was a kid or whatever. And that way of using flashbacks and of using these kind of teases is remarkable, I think, in that he pays each of them off. You see a flash of something, and once the first couple got paid off, and I was like, oh, I remember that from earlier. I knew I was in good hands from a directing standpoint because I knew he was going to finish what he had started. Those flashbacks were all going to be put in their own place and were all going to be referenced. So that was awesome. And
I agree with you 100%.
It made it an exciting exercise, and I know that sounds very unemotional, but it made it an exciting exercise for me to watch the movie and try to figure out, they start talking about the horse, but you don't even know she's talking about the horse necessarily. They have a horse, and she's saying, do the right thing, type of a thing. You don't even know what she's talking about. First of all, the first time you hear her say it, you hear her mom say that line, you don't even know she's talking about the horse.
Right.
And then the second time you hear her say it, she's talking about the horse, but you don't know why she's saying that about the horse. And so it just starts to like snowball. Each of these little things start to snowball. And that was just awesome to me. I could not, I didn't know where it was going to go as far as how he was going to pepper in these things. And it made the storytelling more interesting to me.
I agree 100%. What I thought was interesting when you mentioned the memories or the flashbacks, sometimes when you're watching flashbacks, they're this long dramatic thing in a movie, or it could be comical, but it's usually like a minute or two long at the shortest, and nobody's memory works that way. This is the first time I think I've ever seen in film where it seemed like you were watching somebody's memory, because memories flash like that. Yeah. That's true. You look at a cup and you go, oh yeah, this is the time I had the coffee. And it's not this long. Now there are traditional flashbacks in this film with Laura Dern's character, the mother. There's traditional flashbacks, but those ones that you're talking about, especially at the beginning of the film, that sets the stage for the rest of it, I pretty much have convinced myself that everything you see in a film will come back. My brother has a theory. Nothing is wasted land in a movie. If you see a lighter on a table, there's a reason why you're going to see that lighter on a table. And if you don't find out later on what it was, then it's a wasted land space. There's no reason to have it there.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I knew all that stuff was going to play out. How it was going to play out, I didn't know. But I thought, wow, this is really like it's almost voyeuristic how much you see inside her brain or her memory. And you're almost like, it's overloaded with all those images, especially at the beginning. You're like, wait, what? Wait. And there's nudity and there's profanity and there's drug use.
Unreferenced.
Yeah, unreferenced.
There's no way of knowing, who is this even her? We don't know.
In your mind's eye, though, you kind of know where it's going to go and how it's going to play out. And, maybe because I knew a little bit about the story going into it. But see, this is what I like about this director. And I think it's 2 years in a row he kind of got overlooked, because I loved Dallas Buyers Club, and it was because of his direction I loved it. That thing he did with that buzzing noise in Dallas Buyers Club when he was sick, we've talked about it.
He does a similar thing in this movie.
Yeah, he does, just for a brief second, though.
Yeah.
It's not a brief second. It's a little longer, but it's not a significant motif like it was in Dallas Buyers Club. But the whole way that opening scene in Dallas Buyers Club is shot when he's having sex with the two girls at the rodeo, this is not good. Something's not right here. And the whole humans having sex juxtaposed to a human riding a bull. I mean, the whole imagery, flashing in front of you. You're like, wait, what's going on? Nothing is right here. This is not sexy. It's not masculine. It's just, there's something wrong here. And he sets you up from the beginning of that film. And I kind of forgot for a split second it was him. And then as soon as all those little memories happen, I'm going to call them memories, not flashbacks.
Yeah.
I went, oh, this is that guy. I love this guy. And I knew we were in for something. It was not going to be your traditional biopic. Yeah. Even the storyline is a little bit different because it's sort of a slice of life film, because it starts where she starts the trail and then it ends. But it doesn't. It's sort of told in this weird kind of flashback thing, but it's told present day and past day all at the same time. I loved it. Yeah. I'm glad you liked this film. I was a little worried. I thought you were going to think it was a little overwrought and maybe overdrawn a little bit.
No, I don't. And I think that the performances helped to ground it too.
Stunning.
Yeah. I mean, Reese Witherspoon.
Stunning. And here's what I got to say. I have to interject. The thing about it is that some people debate whether or not people deserved their first Oscar. And a lot of people go back and forth with her, with Walk the Line.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that Felicity Huffman should have won that year. Here's the thing. Whether or not you believe Reese Witherspoon should have won, a lot of people thought she was a supporting character. People have this debate. But we've talked about how people will write articles about, give your Oscar back, you didn't deserve it, that kind of stuff. The next nomination validates the first win. And this performance, this is why I interjected, because I was so excited. After I saw this movie, I thought she just didn't get a nomination because she's famous. She got a nomination because she put in one of the best performances of the year, period. And it validates her first Oscar. It's like Marissa Tomei. Everybody's got issues with her winning for My Cousin Vinny. But when she got nominated for In the Bedroom and then for The Wrestler, it kind of shut everybody up. And this has happened to her because the performance is, it's not her. It's not her. And she's brave and she stands naked for you, literally, physically, spiritually. She stands completely real and she's a little showy. What did they used to call it? Oh, she indicates sometimes instead of showing the emotion, she points to something to prove her point. This role proves that she can be a straight dramatic actress without having a little bit of a gimmick behind it, like in Election or Legally Blonde. They're almost caricatures in a way. This is grounded in truth, and I'm happy for her. And if it wasn't for Julianne Moore being the front runner, I bet you anything she would be the front runner if it wasn't such a strong year for Julianne Moore, which we haven't seen yet. But
no, we haven't seen that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just got excited that you were excited about it.
No, and you know how close, you know that she wasn't necessarily planning on starring in this movie initially because she was supposed to be the lead in Gone Girl, or the Rosamund Pike's. Rosamund Pike replaced her in Gone Girl.
Interesting. And they're both nominated.
Yeah, it's not that Rosamund Pike
he talked her
replaced
out of it.
Exactly.
You told us that.
I pulled this up because she did an interview, and there are varying stories out there, but this is an interview she did with Hollywood Reporter, and she said, when David Fincher says he wants to do a project, you just sit back and say, whatever you want to do. We had a long conversation where he was like, you're not right for it, and this is why. And I actually completely agreed with him. So she was supposed to, her production company, which she just started, it's called, no, it's not. What's it called? I wanted to get this right. Pacific Standard. That's what it's called.
That's her production company?
That's her production company. The first movie they were supposed to do is Gone Girl, and she bought the rights to the book and all that stuff. She probably bought the rights to Wild at the same time, but because I think that she probably didn't. I think she bought the rights to Gone Girl, and then when that didn't work out, I think she bought the rights to Wild, something like that. But anyway, so she was supposed to be in Gone Girl, wasn't in Gone Girl, and that allowed her to do Wild, to star in Wild.
He was right.
Yeah, well,
he was right. She would not. It must be interesting to be at her level. She's an Oscar winner. She can sing. She can do no wrong. She has big hits on her hand. I mean, she did have some minor public issues with, that was a bit rough.
With being a jerk. She's a jerk.
Yeah,
in that situation, she was a jerk.
Yeah, she was.
She got pulled over. Her husband got pulled over, and
but
she
that's
said,
my point.
Do you know who I am?
I know.
Come
That's
on.
rough. And she was really tanked, and you just saw her head blowing up. Well, the point is that's exactly it. Once you're at such a certain level, how much are you listening to people tell you no? You don't have to listen to people tell you no. So the fact that she has enough of a checked ego that she can say, you know what, Fincher, you're right. I am not right for this. And she would not have been right for it. Everything happens for a reason. That I know is truth. This is why, because the performance, if you had taken Rosamund Pike and put her in Wild, it wouldn't have worked.
I don't think that would have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. And ironically, or in the neat world that we live in, they're both nominated this year. So, I'm glad that he talked her out of it, because it would have been wrong, because she is so on point in this film. I was happy for her. I was actually proud of her. I was like, yes, this is the Reese Witherspoon that has gotten all this acclaim. See, I saw it in Election. I was like, what's with her? We've been watching her for a while. She goes way back. I think she's 12 in that first movie she did, Race with the Moon, or Racing.
Oh, I don't know.
Racing the Moon. Sam Waterston.
She was born in 1976.
Yes,
and then
she's 38 years old.
Yeah, and then The Man in the Moon is 1991.
That's
so that'd be 15 years old.
Okay. I think she was 13 when they started filming that movie.
Wow.
And she's the lead. She's like Natalie Portman when they were younger. They were just born to do this, Speaking of which, let's jump into the next most impressive thing in the film, Laura Dern.
Yeah.
Do you know she's only 9 years older than Reese Witherspoon?
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
But I totally believed Reese Witherspoon that young, and I totally believed she was her 40-year-old mother.
Yeah.
Even when Reese Witherspoon was older.
Mm-hmm.
You know what crushed me is when Reese Witherspoon went, "She's the love of my life. Now what?" I was like, oh. You don't often hear a daughter have such a claim for their mother in a movie.
And it seemed like it was both the daughter and the son. It was just kind of
the
like...
son killed me.
Yeah, and it's like the situation...
was great.
It's like the situation of the abusive drunk father fused them together.
Yeah.
All three of them.
Yeah.
And you take one of them away and none of them can function.
Thus the reason why her life fell apart and she went on this devastating journey and then had to walk it off, basically. But there was a lot of talk about Laura Dern being a possible Oscar contender. And they were like, well, she's in the movie and she has a really great role and she does a lot with it, but she's probably going to get left off the list. But she might sneak in there. And she did. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad because I like her. I always liked her. And there is something special. I don't even know what the word is for her. She was angelic in this film. And I read a lot about the real mother. Whoa, you need to read up on her.
I didn't. Is she not so great?
No. She's even better than what they make her in the film.
I think the word you may be looking for is pure. Like,
yeah, that's a good word.
I mean, she is... her like essence is good, you know?
Yeah.
She's gone through a lot and somehow, and there's multiple scenes in there where she's, singing in the kitchen or laughing or, being happy. And it's like, and she even says, the Cheryl character, Reese Witherspoon's character says, "Why are you even happy? There's no reason for you to be happy." And she makes the point that it's that you need to choose to move on. I mean, and you need to make... I mean, do you remember the...
Yeah, totally.
The line?
Well, it's the same. It kind of mirrors that movie with Meryl Streep, One True Thing. Do you remember that movie with Renee Zellweger again?
Oh, okay.
She's dying of cancer. Meryl Streep is in this movie. And Renee Zellweger is sort of the angry young woman who's always looking at the dark side. And Meryl Streep says to her, it's so much easier to live in the joy. It's so much easier to find happiness and live in it than it is to live the life that you're doing. You got to find your joy. You've got to live in the happiness. Mm-hmm. And it's so much easier is what she says. And that's basically what Laura Dern says to Reese Witherspoon. She's like, sure, we could wallow in our own ways, but why? But the real mother, which you see is sort of in the film, she leaves the abusive alcoholic father of the two children. But, she basically lived on welfare and food stamps and then decided to put herself through college.
After, once Reese Witherspoon was in college. I mean, she had one kid who was already gone,
right?
Basically, so yeah. Right. I mean,
but I believe she started her schooling before that in real life,
okay.
And so she was not only struggling to make ends meet, feeding two children and keeping a house over or a roof over their head, but she, was living, paycheck to paycheck, food stamps, all that other stuff, and then decided, okay, well, I need to do better for myself, regardless of what my life situation was, and rose above it. When you read about it, it's empowering, but at the same time, you're like, I don't know if I could have put myself through that. I don't know if I could have done that. And every ounce of that comes across in Laura Dern's performance, every ounce of it. There's something just honest. And the thing that I thought was great was you don't necessarily see young women looking up to their mothers in film. You usually see them rolling their eyes or making fun of them or, oh, mom, you're so cheesy. You're embarrassing me. And there's a little bit of that in there, but you don't see films where a daughter has the respect that Reese Witherspoon had for this mother. And it comes across, and there's something very special about her performance. And I'm happy that the Oscars gave her the nomination to make me recognize that, okay, well, she's nominated. I have to see this film now. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad because I feel touched by that woman's spirit just by her performance. I know that's really metaphysical and cheesy in a way, but I felt uplifted by this woman just through Laura Dern's performance. So it would be nice that she would be a surprise, but it's not going to happen. Well, you never know. But if she did happen to win, I would be okay with it because she is stunning in this movie.
That's great. Well, and the other thing that we haven't really talked about is the setting, the setting of the West Coast. I mean, the whole West Coast. I mean, you've got desert and you've got, the heavy forests and streams and things like that. And it is beautiful. I mean, you lived out there for a little while.
In California, in LA. I didn't realize there were so many extreme. I didn't put that together in my brain when she was starting where she was starting. I didn't realize she would have to walk through snow. I didn't realize she would have to walk through,
there's a whole mountain range, the Sierra Nevada mountain range.
I didn't think about that. And I thought, wow, this is a little different than going to one extreme or the other. Into the Wild with the Sean Penn film.
Yes.
With what's his? No. Yes,
Emil
that's
Hirsch,
him. Yeah,
right?
that's him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's him. He goes out to Alaska and it's frozen. It's snow. That's, it's a little colder sometimes and a little warmer sometimes. Other than that, that's it.
Yeah.
But these extremes, I thought, added to the texture of the film too.
And it was beautiful. I mean, the way that it was shot was beautiful too. I thought that, it looked like he shot on film, but I'm not sure. I can't.
Yeah, I can't tell the difference.
I can't tell. Well, yeah, sometimes. I mean, you can if you watch a David Fincher movie or something. You know that he's shooting and, shooting on digital. But all right. Well, did you have anything else to say about? I mean, because I think that's in a lot of ways that was one of the. We'll talk about the next movie now, about Selma, and one of the issues that I had with Selma is that I didn't, and this is a pure choice that the director and the cinematographer made, and I didn't like it, and so I don't want to shy away from that, but I'll get into that here in a second. So Selma is, I'll just give the description. I mean, it's a chronicle of Martin Luther King's campaign to secure equal voting rights via an epic march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama in 1965. So, and I'll just give a couple of, I mean, it stars David Oyelowo.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Because Brad Pitt did this whole thing at some, I don't know if you saw the clip, he did this whole thing at some, I think it was the Screen Actors Guild Awards. He was announcing the nominees or something, and he had everybody in the room say, "Oh yeah, Oyelowo." He sang it. Oyelowo.
That's how you say it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oyelowo. Oh, I guess that makes sense. If you look at it while you're saying it, does make sense.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. It's going to take me a whole year.
Just to get that one down.
It took me a whole year to do Lupita Nyong'o.
And Barkhad Abdi.
And Barkhad Abdi. And she would tell Ejiofor, geez,
yeah.
keep me on my toes, man. I need it.
It's directed by Ava DuVernay. I think this is her first feature-length film.
I believe it is.
And then and written by Paul Webb, who I didn't really see. This is the only movie he's ever written. So anyway, so I think that this is a trend in movies, and I like it. I like the trend of let's do a biopic in quotations, but let's not try to cram a whole person's life into one movie like Ray. I mean, did you like Ray?
I loved it.
Okay. I mean, but there's so much stuff in there that there has to be things that had to get pulled out, and I think that now we have. We have a couple of movies that have done this. We have Lincoln.
Right.
We have Selma. I was trying to think of some other ones. I know there's 3 more.
Well, it's not. Well, that's why it's not really a biopic, even though it is. It's a slice of life film.
Yeah.
About a particular movement in time, an important movement in time, but the film feels like a biopic. That's why I keep coming back to that term in my mind. I don't mind that they're just talking about from this point to this point, or they're talking about the 13th Amendment, how that went about.
Yeah.
And then it should have been called 13th Amendment, not Lincoln. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But
at least they call this one Selma and not King.
That's true. That's true.
I mean,
true.
that's
But it's
something.
not a Martin Luther King biopic. It's just not. It's a moment in time.
But it's centered around Martin Luther King. I mean,
Right.
There's scenes of him, sitting outside smoking a cigarette. It's not about specifically just Selma. It's about him in his life, whatever's happened to him up to this point, and how he moves through this
Yeah,
situation.
but everything is about how his life is affected by this moment in
particular
time.
moment, yes.
Yeah. So that's the only thing that separates this film for me from traditional biopic.
Yeah. So I think that it's less of a, bite to take, you know what I mean, of something like that. And then it's also easier to quantify, I think. So that's good. It's good that they're not like, here's Martin Luther King Jr. as a baby. Now let's, see him grow up, do his whole life. But and I thought that David Oyelowo did a good job, because we've heard him recently act and speak in Interstellar, and he incorporates the voice of Martin Luther King, and it didn't take me out of the movie.
And did you know that not one of his speeches are the actual speeches because they couldn't get the rights to it?
What?
Apparently another studio owns the rights to Martin Luther King. So they made those up in the world of speeches, in what's the word I'm looking for, in the same
style.
Yeah, in the same style as what Martin Luther King.
Well,
yeah, I couldn't tell the difference, but I don't know them by heart.
No,
But
I don't know.
It seemed like they were the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's because of his performance they seemed like they were the same.
Yeah, and I think that he was able to portray have the gravitas that you see from, or that I've seen from the clips that I've seen of the real Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, and so I did like that, and I think Oprah Winfrey did a good job too.
Yeah, well, I don't know where to begin, because you started off the conversation
Well,
with...
I'm trying to do the good stuff first.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
I got you, and I want to too.
Yeah.
But I keep going back to a few things that didn't work for me for this movie. The thing that's great about what Oprah does is I wanted to see that movie.
About her.
She's fantastic, man.
Is.
She can act.
She can.
She really can act.
So I didn't see the
I'm
Butler.
not trying to make
how's she doing?
She's fantastic.
Okay,
she missed
all right.
an Oscar nomination.
Wow.
She was on point in that movie. There's a scene in The Butler where she's drunk. I don't know. She might be on some other kind of drugs too. And she's looking in the mirror and she's talking to him in the mirror. She's talking to Forrest Whitaker, and she is just laying into him, and she's got this slur, and she's, yeah. And you're like, what happened to, you got a car, you get a car. What happened to that lady? It's disappeared.
It's gone.
She's fantastic. Something happens to a character she's involved with in The Butler, and there's just this brief moment where the camera shoots to her, and your heart breaks. She's an Oscar nominee for a reason, not because she's a famous person, and not because she's a personality, and not because we love her, and not because she's a billionaire. She can act. That, to me, leads me to a flaw for this film, because I was way more interested in what that lady's struggle was, that woman's struggle, than anything else that was really going on in the film. I was like, can we go back to her and find out what she's doing now? What just in that opening sequence is brilliant. I'm not trying to make a fuss. I'm just trying to vote. Yeah. She's really good, but she's in 2 or 3 scenes. Yeah. And I mean, I get that the movie's not about her. I got that, but I felt a little let down once she had left. And I thought, when she appears again, you're like, yes, what else is she going to do? And I don't know much about these people, so I wanted to know more. I wanted to know why. I mean, obviously, why these people want the right to vote, obviously, but what motivates a person to sit there and allow a person to speak to the way that voter registration guy spoke to her was ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And she knew the Constitution, and then he kept topping.
She knew more than probably 90%.
I was sitting there going, I have no idea. I mean, I can say it because of We the People, because of the Conjunction Junction guy. I can say it because of that.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, but they didn't have that then, so she couldn't have sung it.
No,
and
she had to memorize. She had to know how to read because she knew how to write. I mean, all of that stuff.
And then you had to have somebody sponsor you. So
yep, that's true. You're right. She had to have somebody, a
and
white
she
person
went through
sponsor her.
Somebody who could vote, who are obviously white people, because there were a very small minority of black people who could vote. So what motivates a person to sit there and fill out that long form,
and
knowing
pay the money too,
and then pay the money
time.
and then get declined? And I think this is what her 3rd or 4th time they mentioned that she was doing. So right now we've just talked about that 2 scenes basically that she had. There was something a little let downish for me for a lot of the film. And when it kicked into overdrive for me and finally gave me an emotional center is when that young guy got shot.
This is exactly what I was going to talk
in
about.
the deli or in the restaurant, and his wife. That is so stirringly, disturbingly great.
Well, and then the scene that got me was in the coroner's office where his dad is identifying the body.
And you never see his body.
Not until the very end. You see it at the very end.
Yeah, but it's always right. It's right there.
Yeah, it's right next to them and
in between them.
Yeah, and then you've got Common and
who was great.
He was good. And then David Oyelowo comes in as Martin Luther King and just kind of like discuss a few things. And the thing that got me was that you've got an 83-year-old man. I think he was 83 years old, and it was his grandson who was just shot and killed. And he talked about how his grandson wanted him to be the first person to vote in their family, and he was born in 1880 something, I think. And like realizing that, he was born just 20 years after slavery had been abolished.
Crazy.
And in all of that time, in those 80 years, we hadn't gotten to the point where he was even able to do a basic thing like vote, and how he lived through all of that, and how that was one of the big motivations for his son to bring him to this march and to go forward in that, and he effectively lost his life because of that. And
well, up until that moment in the movie was a bit flat and a bit
it wasn't personalized.
Well, not only that, but it wasn't very interesting looking. The cinematography is very brown and very gray, and I get that. I get why they did that. But it was very biopic up to that point. And then, of course, it's personalized, but there is a motivation that you start to understand on a level that hits your spirit, that makes the film start to work. See, when she opens with the young girls coming down the stairs of the church, I said, oh, this is not going to be good. Like, what's going to happen here. And then the devastating thing happens. The church blows up. And you think, oh, this is going to be interesting. She's going to tell this story in a new and different way. But then the crane shot of over top of the church and you see the bodies in the rubble. I thought, well, it's a devastating image, but it's a bit cliche on some level. We've seen stuff like that before. I thought it was interesting just watching the little girls walking down the stairs, having their everyday conversation about hair and what to do. And then boom. And then you kind of see them flying through space, almost like in water. Yeah. It looks like it was shot in water. And I thought, this is going to be good. It was
visceral.
Yeah, this is going to be good. But then the crane comes over and you see that shot and you're thinking, we already know.
We understand what happened.
Our heart is already broken.
Did not live through this.
Yeah, we're done. Our heart is shattered at this point. You don't need that obvious shot. I guess sometimes when you're telling stories, maybe you do. I just think that when a director puts too much of an obvious thing in there, they ruin the spiritual connection you've already had with it. So, for me, I went back and forth with this one. Some of it was just really great and outstanding.
There were a few scenes, like you said, that were really amazing. But then the general feeling of the movie, it didn't stick with me. And I think a big portion of that was, like you said, the look of the film. And I did read an article that it was like an interview with the cinematographer, because I was like, I want to try to figure this out. What was he going for? And he did say he wanted to kind of like give it a Kodachrome, like not like sepia tone, not like 1800s, daguerreotype, not like old timey photo look, but like a Kodachrome was like a particular style of film that people would use to take pictures with. And so it was like certain colors popped more than others, and it did have like a grayish tone, a a grayish orangish tone to it. So
which I had no problem with.
But then at the same time, he used, and this is exactly what I was noticing. If you notice, there were certain scenes where especially the lower portion of the frame and the corners and edges of the frame were out of focus, like way out of focus, and the center of the frame was in focus. And the only thing I could think of was the types of lenses that he was using. And this was used to an extreme in Andrew Dominic's Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. There were certain scenes where, do you remember those kind of like weird, like dreamlike scenes where you would kind of see something and like it looked like you were looking through a Coke bottle?
Yeah, I love that.
And it worked perfectly in that, because it was kind of like, I'm gonna throw this in there to evoke a feeling. Whereas in this movie, it seemed like it was used haphazardly, and it wasn't to the point where it was a stylistic choice. Like, I'm going to use this lens here.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, the lens that we need for this particular distance happens to be a crappy old lens, which is what he said in his article. In the interview that he gave, he said, oh, we used old anamorphic lenses, like lenses from the period, which fine. So you're using lenses from the period. Okay, maybe you're shooting on film. I'm assuming they were shooting on film. Maybe you're shooting on film. You're trying to replicate what it would have been like back then, But if you're going to do that, then do it.
Right.
Don't half and half it.
I agree. It's exactly what I just said about that opening sequence. There's a moment in there where you're like, okay, she has a major thumbprint on this film already. And then the crane shot happens and you're like, oh, okay. I'm not saying I've seen that before, but it felt unnecessary. It's almost like the importance of the story got in the way, because the story's never been told, not that I know of, in this kind of narrative storyline. I've never seen this story before. I've heard about it a million times, which is good. You should be telling this story. It needs to be told. But it's almost like I felt like she was afraid to make strong stylistic choices because it would encroach upon the story and get in the way of the story, when the opposite probably was true. Because the thing that happens in the Assassination of Jesse James, and I'm not saying the whole title, I'm being completely on the other side of that because it is too long of a title. Anyway, now I want to say the whole thing. But anyway, you knew that something interesting was going to happen when that choice was made. This, I didn't have a problem with the way the film looked, any of the blurriness, any of that stylistic choices. What I had an issue with was that when they're all standing on the side of the bridge or they're standing on the side of the road, it looked like somebody made costumes for that time period and then put them on the people and then just walked them down the street, but forgot that it was raining the day before and that it was hot out, or that it was cloudy out, or that there was moisture in the air, or that these people had worn these clothes most of their lives. There was no texture to the costumes. There was no people looked like they just went to the costume trailer and put on a coat and walked out. There was nothing. It didn't have depth to it, and it stuck out. So it's not like it just was there and I missed it. I actually felt like these are actors in costumes walking down, making a very important movie. It never felt like those were real people standing on the side of the street. That said, the emotion is real. The performances are real, all the way down from Martin Luther King to his wife, who looks a lot like her, by the way.
Yeah.
Coretta Scott King. What's her name? What's the actress's name? Carmen Ejogo?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to say that.
I gave my best shot, dude.
That
Don't even get
sounds
me
great to me.
started on his name. It's a great name, but my gosh, there's a lot of vowels in that name. But anyway, she not only looks like Coretta Scott King, but I could get the sense that she was. He, on the other hand, for me, he doesn't look enough like him, but he did embody him enough. But
I thought so.
Yeah, but I felt like I was watching an actor do a really great performance of Martin Luther King. I didn't feel like I was watching Martin Luther King, and I didn't realize it until you see Malcolm X in the film. Which, did that really happen? Did Malcolm X come to that church?
I'm assuming it did. I wouldn't think that they would make that up.
Well, there's a lot of poetic license, and there's a big issue with this film and Wild and American Sniper, where the facts don't add up to what they put on screen.
I read a little bit about American Sniper, not the other two, though.
Right, and apparently Johnson there's a big discrepancy of how they play Johnson in this film. And a lot of people have said that Tom Wilkinson is miscast. I'm on that page too.
Okay, by the way, why can we not find Americans to play these roles? I'm gonna wave an American flag here.
Why is David, what's his name, not?
No, you've got Tim Roth
Yeah.
playing George Wallace.
Yeah.
And you've got Tom Wilkinson playing Lyndon B. Johnson.
Who I didn't for a split second. I was like, is that Nixon? I was like, who is that? Wait, that's not Nixon. It's Johnson. Did you think that was Johnson?
I mean, I knew it had to be Johnson, but I didn't.
No, I mean, but did he come across
it didn't bother me. I mean, I've heard, you know, I've heard tapes of Lyndon Johnson and seen, you know, some video of him, but I mean, not enough for me to be like, this doesn't sound right or whatever, you know.
I guess they were going for the core elements of the moments and not necessarily an actual portrayal per se. I mean, the lead, he's great. There's no doubt about he is going to work from this point on probably more than he would have before he got this big role. Mm-hmm. I was more impressed by him in Interstellar, I'll be honest with you. We talked about him.
We did.
We fell in love with him in Interstellar. I did not for a split second see the same guy, which is great. Mm-hmm. Like until you said that, I went, oh, wait, yeah. And now I'm even more impressed by him. I'm not taking anything away from him, but there's something that just does not add up for me with his performance, with this film. I'm going to see it again only because I feel like I missed something. Like I got it all. I'll be completely honest with you. Let's talk about the controversy, because we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that there is this idea, or people feel like, and he said it himself, David
Oyelowo?
Yeah, good one. He said that the Academy doesn't like strong black men. They only like subservient black men. And I started thinking, well, that's not true. And then I started to list them on. I was like, oh yeah, he's a servant. Oh yeah, he's subservient. Oh
Morgan
yeah.
Freeman.
Yeah. Yep. But then there's, of course, the other side of that. There's, you know, Denzel Washington.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker, Denzel Washington, Training Day, and Glory. Well, he's sort of subservient in that. Yep. And Malcolm X, he's not subservient in that. Mm-hmm. But back to the point about I was saying when Malcolm X shows up in this movie in Selma, all of a sudden I went, wait a second. Everything about Spike Lee's Malcolm X, I believe that was Malcolm X. I believe that world looked like that at the time. Everything felt like that. He made choices to make you feel like you were in that world. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it really happened like that or not, I believed Denzel Washington.
It was lived in.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what's missing for me in this film. And I think it was because the subject matter is so important. It's such a devastatingly crazy time. Mm-hmm. And story-wise, and what's with Alabama? What's going on there? It's happening now, too. Right now, the federal the courts have said, you know, you can't not marry gay people. Mm-hmm. And all those judges in Alabama are like, we're going against that. So it's like, dude, seriously, like, go see Selma. You don't want to be on the wrong side of history again.
Well, and I was thinking about that, especially during the last scene where, I mean, well, you know, they're not the very last scene, but when they try to cross the bridge initially the first time and they just get beat down. I mean, mercilessly beat. And the great thing about the way that media was at the time is that there was film of that. Like you can see film of that. And I think that's what people needed to see, because you might not know what's going on. I mean, now we're completely globally connected to everything.
Right.
And so it's so easy to see what's happening all the way across the world, let alone, you know, one town over. But in the United States at that time, I don't think that we were in that situation. And that's where, you know, later on, you know, Vietnam, that would start happening for the Vietnam War too. People were actually seeing.
Yeah, because that's the first filmed war where we saw it like weekly and stuff like that.
Yeah, where we saw it up
on the news,
updated, as opposed to just being in a newsreel type of a thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in seeing that, I was thinking about that exact thing. What are people in, you know, Montgomery, you know, in the multiplexes in Montgomery and you know, Mobile and all of these other towns and cities in Alabama. I mean, are they going and seeing this and like, you know, because I was watching that and saying like, I don't know how we as Americans could do that, you know, and then also thinking about, like, I don't know how we as Americans can do, what am I going to be thinking 20 years from now, or what are my kids going to be thinking that we're doing right now.
They're going to make a film about Alabama right now.
They probably will.
I saw this interracial couple on Facebook that he had a sign, he's black man, white woman. He had a sign that said, 20 years ago, this was illegal. What side do you want to be on?
Yeah.
And of course, Johnson in this film makes a point at the end where he's like, I want to be on the right side of history.
Yep.
I get that. Here's a question. When they were crossing the bridge the first time, do you think that was almost set up? Like their side, Martin Luther King's side, did they know they were going into that? And they were, I'm not saying hoping that people got hurt, but did they think this was going to be on film and that people will see it? It kind of turned the tide of that situation.
Yeah, I don't know if
maybe
it's,
subconsciously.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that. Well, I do know that they were definite about not having all of the leaders in that, all of the leaders marching at the beginning. Yeah,
because they picked straws, right?
Yes, they picked
to
straws.
choose who would lead this. Yeah.
Because they didn't want all of them to get beat up / killed /
So they
whatever.
knew on some level that was going to happen, but they had to make their stand. But they didn't know that,
they didn't know
little preacher man in Virginia and little housewife in Michigan were going to stand up with them because they saw, okay.
They didn't know that. But then once they see all of that, and then they used the situation to their advantage. I mean, it sounds bad saying that, but they did. They were able to parlay that into support from a larger community, from the community of Americans all across America. So,
yeah, and that's a big debate amongst the group who has been wanting to do this for a while, wanting the right to vote. And they're like, well, wait a second, just because so-and-so Caucasian man from such and such place in California comes and helps us, now we have a legitimate cause. And Martin Luther King's like, it doesn't matter because now they're watching, and the means to the end is all we want. Mm-hmm. All of that portion of the film completely works for me. Yeah. I was all about that part of the film, but there's something, I don't know, there's something not connected right for me in this movie. I wanted it to be. And back to the controversy, we talked about the fact that that was a very Caucasian-oriented Oscar list this year, and that there were not a lot of people of color on it, even though last year was the most multiracial. And we said, well, we haven't seen Selma yet, so we can't, say whether or not we thought he got snubbed, if you will, and the picture got nominated. I have to say, you know what? He was left off the list, but I think he's probably the 6th one nominated. If there was a 6th, 7th, 8th, the 9th, whatever, I think he's probably in the top 10. But I can see why he didn't make the nomination list.
Do you have the 5 committed to memory?
Yes.
Okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay.
Eddie Redmayne.
Okay.
Michael Keaton. Steve Carell. And Bradley Cooper.
I don't know.
I can't see him fitting in there.
Yeah.
If Jake Gyllenhaal,
Benedict Cumberbatch, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to take one out.
Maybe take him out and put David Oyelowo in, but
is his performance maybe in a lesser year for the actors, because the acting category is very strong this year. It's one of the strongest I've seen. There's a lot of people who could fit in there. Jake Gyllenhaal, Nightcrawler, Channing Tatum, Foxcatcher. I mean, I think
and I think I'd probably rather have Jake Gyllenhaal in there before David Oyelowo.
Well, I also think that, I've said this, that I thought Jake Gyllenhaal's performance was infinitely more interesting to watch than a couple of those people on this list this year. So do I think any of those guys should step down and let this guy step in? No, I don't. I think this is great. I think he did a great job, but I can see it. It's a great performance, but there's something intangible that's missing for me. And I'm glad the film got nominated. I think it's worthy of the nomination, but I can see why she got left off too, because there was a big deal about her being the first female African-American director to be nominated, and that the Academy kind of dropped the ball. But I can see why. There's been articles written about that.
Why is there a ball to be dropped? I don't understand why. I mean,
because
meritocracy. In all other situations, now all of a sudden a particular category of person comes in and they just have to be given something. I don't.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother subject. But I think that Is she probably, does she have work in her that I think will be interesting in the future? Yes, I'm hoping the best for her. I found this film interesting. But for me personally, the storytelling, I said it a couple times already. I think the story was so important that they got lost in trying to make a decision about how to tell the story, because I think they didn't want to be disrespectful to how important
the legacy
the
of
legacy.
Martin Luther King.
Well,
yeah.
not only that, but
And
this
of
of Selma and what happened and how it really was a changing moment in our history. But I think, unlike Lincoln, even though I wasn't a big fan of that film, he still took a stylistic choice. He made it very gray, almost dull in a way. Literally the way it looked and the way it was presented.
Moved along.
Yeah, exactly. But he made a choice. Here you can see it's almost like she had these great choices and then somebody kind of talked her out of it. It feels like that a little bit. So, I mean, I think in the future she's going to be somebody to really look at. And
maybe she is an Oscar winner, but maybe not for this movie.
yeah, and I'm thinking,
You know?
when she does finally fit into that category, it's going to be like, oh, we're so happy it's this one. You know, this is one of those films when you're talking about people going in and re-editing film. I would never say I had the kahunas to do something like that. But in my mind's eye, I was thinking, well, maybe if that's put there and this is put here, and then maybe if this is this and this is that. Because here's what I'm going to go back to this fact. At the end of the film, you see the people, the actors, and what happened to the real life person, okay? Well, there's a few people who you don't really ever hear about in the movie. So did they get edited out? Like, who is the lady who is sort of the mother figure? Who, not Oprah, but the other lady.
Oh yes, she's that actress was in Orange Is the New Black last season, so
I like her.
Yeah,
But you don't really learn anything about that character. But yet she's presented as this historical figure at the end, and I'm thinking she gave off a vibe that I really want to know what happened to her. So let's have part 1, part 2, and part 3, where this was the beginning of the story. Let's go back and talk about what happened to Oprah's character. Let's go back and talk about what happened to that young girl in a diner who's, husband gets killed. What happened to her? I mean, her life must have been ever changed, and it's devastating what happened to her. So it had these little glimmers of greatness, but it kind of petered out. And I hate to say it, if anybody deserved an Oscar nomination, anybody, guess who I'm going to say?
You're gonna say Oprah Winfrey?
No.
Oh,
Although, give it to her. I'm fine with it. Tim Roth.
really? Okay.
Yeah. He stands solid.
But you don't think he chooses scenery a little bit?
Yeah, of course he does, but he makes it
Okay.
work. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm an over-the-top personality
Okay.
myself, so I don't really,
All right.
when I did do the acting, I could have been a scene chewer myself. I mean, take a big chunk out of that chair. I don't care. But I think he made you want to know about a guy who was disgusting in his attitude towards human beings. And that speech that he has, once they get the right to vote, and then and then all our money's gone. You're like, wait, what?
That's a big jump.
Right, but he made it make sense. You believe that guy was that guy. And there's a few judges out there right now who're going to fulfill his shoes. I'm telling you, they're gonna make a movie.
All
And they're
right.
gonna call him George Wallace wannabes, man. Because, but I thought he was, even though he is probably the worst human being in the film, obviously, there was something multi-dimensional about his performance. I will say this, and I'm not going to try to recoup from what I just said, because that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I think the lead, Martin Luther King, his spirit and his soul was multidimensional. The character development for me wasn't all there, but he has some really soul-crushing scenes in that movie.
Well, I mean, the scene where he basically verifies that he's been cheating on his wife to his wife.
Yeah, that's the most interesting scene in the film.
It
for
was
me.
good. To me, it was good that they added that in there, because you knew that could have been a criticism if they glossed over that.
Right.
I mean, because they could have said, oh, well, this isn't about his whole life. This is just about these, 4 months, 5 months. And they could have
But
just
it
completely
humanized
glossed
him.
over it. But yeah, it did. And it made him, there were a few scenes that made him, real, I think.
And in a lesser,
that was one of them.
In a lesser actor, that pause that he takes when she goes, "Do you love any of the other ones?" There's a long pause there.
It's long.
But you know what scene I was really impressed with him about is when he's on the bridge and he kneels down.
Mm-hmm.
You know everything he's thinking and feeling, and then he decides, nope, we're going to turn around.
Yeah.
And yet he knew it, but did he plan it right at that moment, or had he pre-planned it? Because nobody else knew he was going to do that.
I think, I mean, so you can think of it in different ways.
That's a grand piece of acting right there.
Yeah, you can think of it in different ways, but like he kneeled to pray, and they talked about this in the movie, is that's what God was leading him to do, was to turn around and go back.
Right.
Even though when you look at it from a practical standpoint, that's not even the first or second thing that he should have done. From a practical, from a practical standpoint, they're there to do something and they need to move forward, or they need to do something, even stand there and protest or whatever. But he did the exact opposite of what you would expect out of a leader of those people. And those people followed him. And it turned out that was possibly the best thing to do.
I think
it's situation.
I think it's his second best moment in the film. There's a couple of great moments he has,
Mm-hmm.
but that right there that makes you question whether or not he deserved an Oscar nomination. And when people say he should have been nominated, that's the scene I'm going to refer to go, you know what? I agree with you if it's based on that scene right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, and it is nominated for Best Picture, and it's also nominated for Best Song, which Common and John Legend.
I think they're going to win.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I do.
Is it the highest profile song, other than Everything Is Awesome?
Yeah, it is. But there's something special about it, and I think it's the perfect blend between somebody who could sing a traditional ballad for a movie like that, John Legend, and then Common, who's cool.
He is cool. He's like a poet and actor.
He's cool. He's good too. He's solid.
He's been in a bunch of movies too.
He's solid. He doesn't flinch for a second, because he doesn't rely on being Common. He doesn't rely on being a famous person. I actually believed he was a real live person involved. Once again, back to the same thing though. What's going on in that guy's life? I want to know more about what motivates.
He's a preacher, but
but I'm
you
saying
don't know much about it.
Right.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, there it is. But I think it's the perfect blend between what's going on in the hip hop world now and what's going on in the traditional Oscar winning ballad world, and I think it's the perfect blend. And when they performed it, what was it, on the Golden Globes?
On the Grammys.
No.
I mean, not the Grammys, the Grammys. They just performed it on the Grammys.
Yeah, but didn't they do it on the Golden Globes too?
Oh, they probably did.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was like,
oh, cool.
This is really well done.
Yeah. Well, and I sat there.
It might not be the Golden Globes.
I sat
Where
there
did I see
at the end of the movie. I mean, because that's what they used for the. I mean, that song was playing through the credits, and I listened to it. It was good.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so next week we're gonna do top 5 movies of the year of 2014.
Well, I was thinking about that. We still have to talk about Still Alice.
Yes.
That's a possibility, but I think we need to just keep everybody in suspense here, because I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, you guys can check us out on the web, actorandengineer.com. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/actorandengineer. Twitter is @actorengineer. And we'll see you next week.
Until then.
Bye.